Dulcimoon Talks,
where music, connection, and inspiration meet.
I'm DJ Hamouris.
And I'm Erin Mae Lewis.
Together, we're your hosts for these beautiful conversations that celebrate the vibrant women of the Dulcimoon Talks.
Since June of 2022, and inspiration Talks have brought you into the lives and stories of extraordinary women, Erin Mae Lewis, leaders, teachers,
Together,
producers, and artists who are shaping and sharing the art of the dulcimer in unique ways.
Our guests come from all walks of life. Many balance their passion for dulcimers with careers far outside the music world, yet they all share one thing: a deep love for the dulcimer and the joy it brings to teaching, practicing, performing, and creating.
Each episode is an intimate journey exploring personal musical paths, sources of inspiration, and the beautiful ways dulcimers weave into our lives. Think of it as the kind of meaningful conversation you'd have while sharing a meal at a festival. A mix of insight, laughter, and heartfelt connection.
Whether you're a long-time dulcimer enthusiast or just curious about this amazing world, Dulcimoon Talks are here to inspire, inform, and delight.
We release new talks twice monthly and are thrilled to have you on this journey with us. Make sure to subscribe and join the growing community as we honor the magic of dulcimers and the people who make them sing.
Dulcimoon Talks, sharing stories,
celebrating connections,
keeping the music alive. Hello, and welcome to Nina Zanetti and all of you joining us live here on YouTube. This is Dulcimoon Talk, I don't know, number 50-something. We're almost up to 60, Nina. Can you believe that?
Pretty close, yeah.
It's pretty close.
I saw that. Bravo.
Yeah. It's fantastic. And I'm really delighted that you're able to join us this morning. I have been following your work since I met Linda Brockington. And I just love your arrangements. I love your playing.
Thank you.
And I'm really glad that you could join us today.
It's a pleasure to be here. So, well, I mean, I'm in my living room, but it's a pleasure to join you.
That's right. And it wouldn't be your living room without one of your cats up in the corner.
Yeah, there's one.
Home. You're home. Great.
I'm home. Yeah. But I'm with you at the same time. Amazing.
Yes, it is amazing. And you're in Albany, near Albany, New York?
Yeah, very close, just outside, a couple of miles outside. Yeah.
And I'm in Albany, California. We're literally coast to coast. Isn't that amazing?
It is.
It is amazing.
It is.
When we were talking just now, you said you just came home from a music camp, and this is part of your life, right?
Well, this is just the past couple of years. I've started allowing myself to go to music workshops. I mean, I love teaching at dulcimer workshops. I absolutely love it. But I started thinking, when I was a kid, I never went to music camp. So it turns out that there are music camps for adults. And I've been going to a couple every year. This one was the Viola da Gamba Conclave, as they call it. Wow. It was for people who play viola da gamba. Well, if dulcimer is a little world, so is the viola da gamba world. And for a whole week, we just all played viola da gamba, and there were the equivalent of jam sessions, which reminded me so much of dulcimer festivals. But that's my newest instrument, so I just thought it would be good to get some formal instruction on it. And this was a fun way to do that. I would have to say as much fun as dulcimer festivals. It was very similar, but different instrument, different music.
Well, sure. Both instruments are definitely niche instruments.
Yes, that was the word I was looking for. Yes. And so when you find other people who share that love, you're immediately family.
That's right.
And that's how it was for me with the dulcimer community, right from the very first festival I went to.
Oh my goodness, what brought you to the first festival?
Well, this is how my dulcimer story, right, which everybody has one. I think that the seeds were planted much earlier in my life I don't remember exactly when, but when I was a very young adult, I saw a picture of a woman sitting under a tree with a dulcimer in her lap. And it was a beautiful picture, and it might have been Jean Ritchie, I don't know. But the woman was very beautiful, and I thought, that's an intriguing looking instrument. I never heard one. And at various times after that, I'd be someplace and I might see a dulcimer, but never really heard one. So in 2004, I had just been through a horrific year. It was, I don't want to tell the details, but it was like I had been plunged into a really horrible soap opera. Just medical issues, personal issues. It was dreadful. And after weeks and months of just feeling miserable, I thought there has to be something more interesting than sitting at home and crying. So I've always loved early music, and I saw a poster. There was an early music group playing. So I went to that concert. On the wall was a poster, Mountain Dulcimer Workshop, loaner instruments available, beginners welcome, for the next weekend. I thought, this has to be better than sitting home feeling miserable. So I went. And over the course of that weekend, I felt happy for the first time in months and months. I met some lovely people, and I decided that I deserved something nice. So I bought a mountain dulcimer. I bought my first dulcimer. I took the beginner's workshop, and I thought, well, let's play by number. I can do that. And then I went to an intermediate workshop just because the topic sounded interesting. And I couldn't play that, but I sort of listened. And I went home with a dulcimer, a beginner book, and Shelley Stevens' book of O'Carolan tunes, because I had also just discovered the music of Turlock O'Carolan. Of course I couldn't play them, but I sat down every night, and if I wasn't sleeping, eating, or working, I was on the sofa with a dulcimer in my lap. And I only had those two books. Well, the beginner's book wasn't that interesting. It was helpful, but not that interesting. So I decided to plunge into the O'Carolan tunes. And every night I would take one measure and just kind of figure out, well, the numbers tell me to do this. And so, I couldn't play them well, but that's sort of how I taught myself to play. And then I realized, well, I don't really have any music for this, so I started trying to pick out tunes, which for a paper-trained musician was a very radical thing to do. But I thought, well, on this instrument, it's not that hard. I could pick out the melody, and then I thought, let me see if I can find a note that sounds good with it. So that's how I got started, and it was just what I needed at that time. It was familiar enough because it was music, so it felt comfortable, and I had played a bunch of other instruments, so it felt comfortable, but it was a totally new genre and a new instrument, so it had that. I felt like I was on a new path to something wonderful. So, a lot of people have that kind of dulcimer story, that just when they needed it, it came to them, and it was a very healing journey. So then after that, I went to every little festival that I could, and went to our local meetings. And after about 6 months, I started taking lessons. I did that with Susan Trump for a little while. And then it took on a life of its own, so that was it.
That is wonderful. What a great way to bring yourself out of a hole. The misery it sounded like you were in.
It was terrible. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know so many people that have moved to music, towards music in a new way.
Yes.
Because you've already been a musician, right?
Yeah, since I was a kid, really. So, but I was really so down at the time that, and this sometimes happens to me. Sorry, it's become a joke. When I'm having a rough patch, I can sometimes get so down that if it's really bad, that I don't want to play the instruments that I already know how to play. So it was, that happened during the pandemic, so I also learned a new instrument during the pandemic. But it's like, my cure for having a rough patch is learn a new instrument. So,
a new challenge.
well, it's also that you're starting with a clean slate, so there are no self expectations. I think that's a big part of it. So, like, when you're a beginner, you can't do anything wrong because everything's wrong. So, just having no expectations really removes any possible stress. But it's still music. And dulcimer came very quickly.
Nina,
yes,
are you there?
Yes. What happened? Hello? Hello? I'm still here.
There we go. Okay.
Did
right.
did I disappear? I'm
not sure what happened, but we're on
Okay.
again, and we'll do
Okay.
some editing later.
okay. So I don't know how much got cut, but anyway, that's.
Okay, keep going.
I think that's about it of how I got to dulcimer.
Okay.
I think that's about.
Yeah, great. We're both a little. Wait, what happened?
Oh, well, where is
It was on
where?
my end. Don't worry about it. These
Okay.
things happen,
Okay, sure.
right? So, you did have a musical background before. Is that
Yes.
a lifelong thing for you?
Well, I've never done music professionally. I never had, but I've loved music since, honestly, as long as I can remember. My very earliest memory that I have is of being at an outdoor concert with my parents and hearing this, one of those concerts under the stars, and hearing somebody, a man, sing Old Man River. And my little 3-year-old heart somehow just was moved by that. I don't really remember the details, and I have very few other memories of that time. But I think things like that would happen, and my parents, bless them, realized that I just was drawn to music. So I think I was about 5 when my dad took me for free group piano lessons at the YWCA, and we learned how to play on little plastic keyboards. And then when I was 8, I was able to take real piano lessons, and we managed to get some beautiful piano. So most of my childhood, my instrument was piano, and I never minded it. It was classical, and I never found it constraining. I didn't always love it, but I never disliked it. So I just stayed with it, and it slowly got better. And then it got exciting in high school when I started accompanying choirs and playing in pit orchestras, and occasionally playing with other instrumentalists. So I got really excited about chamber music. And so when I was 17, decided I had to learn to play the violin. This was one instrument I wasn't especially depressed, but it was just I had to learn to play the violin, and it's very cute when a 5-year-old squeaks and squawks. It was not cute when a 17-year-old was learning this instrument, but somehow I did learn it enough to play in orchestras and a little bit of chamber music in college. And let me see what. Then in grad school, so I was in an orchestra, and some people said, "Let's form a quartet, but we need somebody. We have 4 people, but we need someone on violas." Never hadn't played a viola, so I'll learn viola. And I got one, and I quickly taught myself the clefs. Then I played viola quartets. And then, not too much after that, I guess through my 30s, I played mostly violin and viola. But, not professionally, just wherever I could find an orchestra or someone to play chamber music with. And I just loved that music. when I got a little bit older, for various reasons, I didn't play any instruments, but I really got involved in choral music. I used to have an okay choir singer voice. So I was able to be in some terrific choirs, and one of them was like an Anglican church choir. We did lots of Anglican chant. We did lots of Renaissance music. We got to go to England 3 times and sing in those beautiful cathedrals for a week. We would replace the cathedral choirs. So that was a whole other body of music and musical experience. I was also in a community choir, and every year we did Handel's Messiah, and just all the wonderful choral masterpieces. And then came the time when not too much, a little bit later was when I had my terrible year and discovered dulcimer. And so that was pretty much my musical life for a while. But then I started feeling the pull of violin again. So I went back, and while I was teaching dulcimer workshops and trying to, do what I could on that instrument, I was also working my way back into violin and viola. And then during the pandemic, another bad year, or 2 or 3, really down, and too down to play any of my other instruments. Well, actually 2 things happened that were wonderful. One was QuaranTUNEs and the virtual things. And I felt honored to be invited to do these virtual festivals. They've turned out to be wonderful, I think, for many people, and certainly for me, it kept me playing dulcimer and teaching and working on music, and I'm not that keen on traveling, so to get to do some of my dulcimer workshops online has been thrilling, and a real blessing. And then the other thing, though, was, when I'm down, what's the cure? Learn a new instrument. So that's when I started teaching myself viola da gamba, which has been kind of wild. It's, another instrument where you have to tell people what is it. And like dulcimer, this is a mountain dulcimer, so this is a viola da gamba. But that got me back doing a lot of Renaissance music, which I had really learned to love when I did choral music, but I really lost my singing voice. I think I mentioned I've also had trouble with my speaking voice. It's just a voice condition that isn't that interesting to talk about, but I can't sing anymore at all. But I can play that type of music on viola da gamba in little consorts, and it turns out to be a very, very sociable instrument. Like, for many people, the whole point of playing viola da gamba is to play in little groups of 4, 5, or 6. So that's my musical journey. It's been fun, I guess. One of the good things about having so many decades behind me is that I've had time to explore so many different avenues. But certainly the dulcimer has been a very, very joyful one, and was a source of healing when I needed it. So.
When did you start teaching?
Mountain dulcimer, or my day job? Dulcimer, you mean?
Mountain dulcimer. We'll get to your day job.
I started about 3 years after I started playing, so that would have been about 2011. No, let me think. 2006 or 7. Just at the local festivals, of which at that time we had several. And, I would go to them and I'd play in the open mic. And I was, again, at that time, I had nothing else much going on except my day job. So when I wasn't working, I was playing dulcimer and kind of leapfrogged over, some of the early stages. So I'd go to these small local festivals, and after maybe 3 years, the organizers would say, do you like teaching? Well, yeah, I love teaching. That's my day job. And, well, you seem to like dulcimer, so why don't you do a workshop or two? And then in 2008, I went to Winfield. And I think it was probably mostly there that some of the people who organized the big festivals heard me play. And then they started inviting me to the more distant, more nationwide events.
So I understand there's a story about you getting to Winfield.
Yeah, that was something I had never ever planned. But so I'm not really into competitions at all. And up here in the Northeast, we don't have dulcimer competitions, so nobody really thinks about them. But a couple people had said, when I was at festivals, well, you ought to think about going to Winfield. And at first I'd say, what's that? But in 2008, early in 2008, January, I was on a small boat touring the Galapagos Islands, and I was with Susan Trump, Sue Carpenter, and Beth Lassie, and their spouses. I'm the only biologist in the crew, but those fine dulcimer players had decided that they wanted to get together and go on a trip to the Galapagos Islands, and that I should come with them because I'm a biologist, so how could I not want to go to the Galapagos? So right. I did, and I brought a little ginger because at that point, I could not go for a week, 2 weeks without playing dulcimer. So I was there one day. We had a little free time, and I was playing on the boat, and Sue Carpenter walked by, and she said, you ought to go to Winfield. By this time, I didn't say, what's that? But I said, well, that's awfully far away. And she said...
Let me interrupt for just a moment. Yeah. Our folks who are watching might not know what we're talking about.
Right, so please, explain.
Winfield is it's at the Walnut Valley Festival in Winfield, Kansas. And that's where the national championships are held, not just for mountain dulcimer, right? I think also for
guitar,
and other
banjo, alto harp. Yeah, hammer, dulcimer. Yeah.
Right, and so we have talked with other champions, and of course, Erin Mae is a former champion as well. So, so just to give some context there.
Yeah.
So you decided you had.
Well, I was really skeptical. It's in September when I'm teaching for my day job, and college teaching, you can't get substitutes. So at first I thought, I don't think I can do this, but Sue persisted, and she said, and I always thank her for this, she said, if you can get yourself to my home in Texas the day before Winfield starts, I will take you there. I will shepherd you through the process, because she had won the championship a few years earlier. And she said, don't worry about, if you win or lose, but it's a really good experience. So I looked at my academic calendar, and it was the only time in decades that somehow the academic calendar was a little bit different that year, and I was able to get away for those days. So I thought, okay, maybe the universe that so kindly plunked a dulcimer in my lap is also telling me to go do this crazy thing. So, and besides, it would be fun to spend time with Sue Carpenter. So I went, and she took me, and I had practice. I had practiced my favorite arrangements. But again, I'm not really into competition, and I just thought, well, this, good excuse to practice a lot. Well, I got to Winfield, and I felt like a fish out of water. First of all, it was huge, and as I walked around, there was all this music that was not my kind of music. I mean, I like lots of different kinds of music, but it was mostly bluegrass, and no disrespect meant for to bluegrass musicians at all, but I didn't know that music, and it wasn't one of my many cups of tea. It just then most of all, what I was thinking is, nobody here is going to want to hear what I do. because I mostly play quiet stuff, lullabies, quiet Celtic tunes, and I had just prepared what I like because I figured that's what I would play the best. So I thought, no one's going to want to hear me. I thought, but you know what? For 5 minutes, anybody can stand anything. So I'll just play for myself. So then the other part that was really weird was, I'll never forget this. While we were waiting to be called out to play our 5-minute bit, there was a so-called green room outside the building where they had the competition. Well, this green room was really just a fenced-off area with, dirt that you stood on, and there was a water spigot. That was so weird. At odd intervals, the water spigot would shoot out water, so you had to be sure not to stand there where you might get sprayed. But what was also strange is many of the contestants that year were young men, lovely young men, but who were so into competition. So they were talking about, they had first done their state competition or regionals, and this was their 4th, 5th time at Winfield, and they really wanted to win. And you could just feel the testosterone in the atmosphere. So again, I thought, what am I doing here? I'm an older, I wasn't quite this old then, but I was an older lady, and I wasn't into competitions. I didn't even know how the system worked. So again, I just thought, okay, when it's my time, I'll just walk out, play for myself, and I'll be done with it. And so I did that. I walked out and I played 2 tunes. They were like a lullaby and a really lilting cowboy song, but really lilting. And I walked off and I thought, okay, so I'm probably done for the day. Well, they called me back in for the second round. So once again, it was another lullaby, and probably two really quiet things. Yeah, I don't remember what, 2 very quiet things. So I walked out, and I almost wasn't nervous because I was so sure that I was in the wrong place. This was not my place. These were not my people. This was not my tribe. But, I was just basically thinking, well, they'll have to listen to me for 5 minutes more, but that's not too long. And then they, when it was all over, they called the 5 of us back out, and they start with, number 5. And they called all these other names, so I thought, well, I guess they probably forgot about me, and that's okay because I never even expected to get this far. And then they called the person who won, and it was me, and I was really shocked because again, I just thought this was not a place where people would want to hear what I played, but they did. So it was the only competition I've ever done. I've not done any competitions since then. I don't really intend to, but I think it was probably because I was so sure that this was just a kind of a little fluky thing I had done that I was able to play my best.
That's amazing. I love that. I love that for you.
Well, so people sometimes for years after that, young players would contact me and say, oh, please, can you tell me how to prepare for Winfield? And I tried to say, well, just be yourself and don't worry about what other people are thinking. And then they wanted something more. I could tell they would want some tips about what were the judges looking for. I have no idea, but
that's amazing. But you're also used to being in front of people every day.
Yes, that has helped enormously because by nature I'm a very shy person. And when I was a student, to get up and give an oral report was pure torture. But somewhere along the way in college, I actually felt that it was, if you will, my calling to be a teacher. And then I figured, well, if I'm going to teach, I have to get over being worried about standing up in front of people. So what I really love about doing dulcimer performances, as opposed to classical performances, is that usually you can start out by talking. It's expected. Or in between pieces, you do that little patter thing. And it actually relaxes me because it helps me feel like I'm just in front of a classroom.
So biology, though, is the subject you followed for your professional college work and subsequent professorship.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Well, I've always really had two things that I loved. And one was music from when I was really small. And then when I was in 6th grade, somebody let me look at something through a microscope. And I fell in love with the structural beauty of biology, especially at the small level. So I was all the way through most of college. I couldn't decide. Was it going to be music or biology? And I tried to do both, and I really felt that I couldn't do justice to both at a professional level. So I thought it would be easier to have biology as the profession and music as a sideline than the other way around. Like it's kind of hard to have microscopy as a hobby. You can a little bit. And I certainly for years I had a microscope at home and I had a little jar of pond scum, but it was hard to do much more than that. So it worked out pretty well. I mean, I think that anyone who has a day job will say that it's frustrating because you never have your best hours in the day to give to music. You never have as much time as you really would like to give to music. But on the other hand, it frees you up to explore a lot of different kinds of music, and you never see music turn into a chore, which I think professional musicians may have to, I don't know for sure, but I've read sometimes that becomes a bit of a struggle. And well, I mean, I guess even in my dulcimer career, so to speak, I quickly realized that once you start taking money for something, if you don't feel like practicing on a given night, well, you have to, you have to. Or if you're not feeling well when it's in the middle of Kentucky Music Week. Once I had a really bad cold, well, you keep on keeping on. So, I didn't have that to deal with. What was your question? Oh, how was it balancing both? Or, well, with the biology, what I came to realize was that I really didn't like being a scientist at all. Like, I had to do grad school, I had to do a fellowship where I was doing research all day, and I didn't like it because I wanted to work more with people. Again, kind of funny as a shy person, but I wanted to work with people, and so teaching seemed like something I would really love. I was able to get the job of my dreams teaching at a small liberal arts college where most of my time was in the classroom and with undergrads, and I love that age group. They're young adults, they're baby adults, they're just finding their way, and I get to be there as kind of almost a life coach, if you will. So I love that age group. But what being a college professor allows you is that during the summer, you're not teaching. Now, we are supposed to work on research or some academic project, but it's flexible timing. So when I started teaching dulcimer, I could get away for any summer festivals. I really couldn't do any big ones during the academic year, but like Kentucky Music Week and Dulcimer U, and I got to teach at John C. Campbell a couple of times, which was fabulous. So I could do that during summer. So that worked out well. And now I'm actually slowly phasing out of my day job because I'm getting older. And as I've added on more instruments that I want to be playing and participating in, I just need more time. So I've moved to part-time with my day job, and probably in another year I will fully retire. And it will be difficult because I just love working with students. But if I want to keep up all these instruments that are taking up all this room in my house, I can't have a day job anymore. I don't have time for it. And I really a few years ago started thinking, well, what could I get rid of that takes up time? And like, you can't get rid of doing laundry, and you can't get rid of all those little chores like taking the car to be inspected and all those, the stuff of life. So the only thing I could get rid of was my day job, which finally I'm at a point where I can do that. So I'm hoping in retirement to do as much music as possible.
Right, absolutely. And now you can find out what it's like to be able to spend most of your time with music.
Yes.
What a blessing.
Yes. Yes. I feel very lucky, and the day job has also enabled me to buy more instruments, again, than my little house has room for. So I just bought a second viola da gamba last week and a new dulcimer just to have another one. Wow. Because we all have lots of dulcimers, right? And a Baroque violin a few months ago, so it's getting out of hand. But
I've got to get you out here to California because my friend Mark Wallstrom owns a shop called Campbell Folk and Baroque. It's all strings.
Ooh,
he's the sort of person. He's the sort of luthier that builds nickel harpa.
Fun. What fun.
Which is an amazing thing.
Yes, it is. Yes, we have a local folk music festival, and there was a group of 6 nickel harpa players one year.
6?
Yeah.
Wow, it's hard to find one.
Right. But they gravitate to places, I think, where they can be together. So, yeah, it was wild.
If you ever want to come out to California, let me see if I can work that out for you.
Thank you. Thanks.
I've got loyal students who, if I tell them they need to take workshops from somebody, they listen. So I really have loved this time with you. Is there anything in particular that if you were to talk to a new student on the Mountain Dulcimer who is feeling discouraged, what would you say?
Well, I think that the beauty of the Mountain Dulcimer, maybe more, this is true for any instrument, but especially for the Mountain Dulcimer, is that you can play something very, very simple and it sounds good. So I would say, I think that, obviously it takes time to build up skills. So if the person really wants to play the fancy stuff, be patient. But also, right from the start, enjoy what you can do. Which, again, on Mountain Dulcimer, you can play single notes. And unlike when you're just a beginner on the violin, when it sounds awful, on Dulcimer it sounds pretty. It sounds like you're playing a harp. So enjoy the simple stuff and make it your own. So try to take simple things and relax and love the music and let the music speak to you. And that's the point of learning an instrument, is not to become frustrated and think of it as a burden. When you get to a certain point, if you want to get to another point, yes, you can choose to do that as a means to an end, but then it's a choice. But to sit and feel inadequate, that's not the point. So I would say, in addition to, yes, go to workshops and enjoy the challenge, but also find some simple things and let the instrument speak to you and enjoy that simplicity.
That's great. I've really enjoyed this morning, and I know that our listeners have probably enjoyed it too. And I'm going to be, I'm going to say a couple things here about the talks. We do have people scheduled throughout. We've got like 3 scheduled in August. We've got Wendy Sanj, and I can't remember all the people that we've got, and all the way through September. So if you're just checking in on this for the first time, subscribe to the station and you'll get notified when these talks come up. And please make sure that you share this talk with your friends because it's worth listening to.
Thanks. It was fun. It was
Yeah,
really fun to do with you.
it is. Okay, thanks so much.
My pleasure. And nice to get to chat with you.
All right. So bye-bye, folks.
Bye-bye.